Hey everybody, this is Raul for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of speaking with bassist, songwriter, and bass musician contributor Alex Lofoco.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Raul.
How's it going?
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having
Good.
me here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thanks to the wonderful technology of Skype, Alex is in London, and we are, of course, in our home in Washington State, and we're able to talk like we're sharing the same room. And I know that a lot of you may not have the collective memory of seeing a lot of the contributions that Alex has done over the years to Bass Musician Magazine, the lessons on double thumbing, conversation we had at the NAMM show. If you simply look him up, the little hourglass at the upper right-hand side, put in Lofoco, and you will find quite a bit of things that have Alex's involvement. Now, that said, I don't believe we've ever really talked about your journey as a bassist, Alex. So tell us, starting kind of early on, how did you get started in the world of bass?
Oh, wow. That's a long time ago, I guess. You want the short version or the long version?
Whatever version you wish to give me, sir. We are
Ah,
attent.
well, I think the most poetic is probably the longer one. I try to keep it compact. Well, first of all, I started playing piano when I was a kid. My dad introduced me to music a little bit, pushed me actually in learning piano, and and that's how I started studying music and playing a little bit. And the bass itself, actually, I wasn't aware of the existence of an instrument called bass until I was 17 or 18, where some high school friends wanted to put together a band, and they asked me to play the keyboards in the first place because I could play piano. And I said, yeah, fine, let me know when. But then the guy who was supposed to get the bass actually found a keyboard for free. So they asked me, why don't you get the bass and play the bass? And I asked, what was the bass? I was listening to music, but I didn't know what it was. I was listening to a lot of Iron Maiden. So for me, the bass was actually the drums.
Mm-hmm.
And and then when he told me, the bass is the one that does do, 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 do. I had to listen to some records and realize that there was something in between the drums and the guitars at some point, and I fell in love with it. I remember phoning the guy, say, "Is the bass that thing that comes in before the guitars, after the drums on that track?" Yeah, oh yeah, I like it. Started the bass when I was 17,
Okay.
almost 18, so I started pretty late. Um, Funny thing is that one of the reasons why I stopped learning piano was that I couldn't read the bass clef. I was
Ah.
always guessing. And now I can only read the bass clef, and I forgot almost the treble clef. Too bad. And I picked up the bass, cheap Yamaha, um, in the summer 1998, after watching the first gig I ever watched by Iron Maiden, actually. And I wanted to play that sort of energetic, adrenalic music.
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing the bass and got some lessons of a guitarist who was teaching guitar to another friend of mine. And and then after many years of gigging, I was always kind of jumping in any situation was offered to me, any type of band covers or original. And then I moved to London in 2008
Okay.
to study music at uni. I mean, that was the main excuse to run away from Rome, where I'm from originally, just to check out the scenery. And here I am. I think um, I never studied much, to be honest. I always wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
Since I picked up the bass, actually, I would say I would never look back.
Got you. So it's been more of a hands-on kind of experience with gigging and kind of acquiring your chops as you evolve. Because definitely, um, and we'll talk about your new release. Um, it's not Iron Maiden.
No,
there's
no, but I can feel. I mean, I can feel the same type of energy here and there.
exactly. But it is definitely a much more evolved kind of thing when you look at the
Oh,
complexities and the levels. But we will come back to that. So you moved to London and you were learning some bass, and I know that you've been involved in doing some teaching. Again, you have some lessons even with us. And gigging more, playing
Yeah.
with.
I think I started my career starting from doing master classes and demonstration of stuff
Okay.
because I always wanted to master the instrument mechanically to be able to do whatever I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So I always approached the instrument from a mechanical point of view and then discovering the harmony within it. Um, and teaching also for me is a good, I mean, I love to share things, also to get opinions and feedback, and also to double check if I'm doing the right thing. In other words, this is the way I look at things, and if it works for you, it means that I'm on the right track. So it gives me fuel and energy to delve, to dig in a bit more and experiment with different things, combinations and everything. So I think also you mentioned earlier the double thumping, slapping technique thing. Um, that was for me a tool to play some other stuff. I wanted to play. I never could slap actually in my life. I wasn't into that sort of music until I discovered, I don't know, Victor Wooden mainly. I mean, I knew Marcus Miller. I wanted to play one of Marcus Miller tune, Power, I think it is. It's got kind of a tripletty fast lick. I never could be able to do. So I remember there was one guy who was doing something funny with his thumb, Victor Wooden,
Hmm.
and I thought, well, let me look at him. Maybe I can get some technique to crack Marcus technique. And then
Sure.
eventually I got lost into Wooden, and I never learned Marcus Miller. But yeah, and after I started doing these master classes in music colleges and music shows, I used to work in a music store in Rome before.
Hmm.
And for me, it was a lot of fun. Really, didn't feel like working apart from waking up early in the morning. That was the pay. Um, it
They
was
get up early in Rome to open the music stores.
because we have the lunch break.
Oh,
So normal shift was 9:30 to 1, and then 3:30, 7:30. If I would have started 11, let's say, and 10, just to be fair, it would have been much smoother, I guess. But so yeah, the music store experience for me was sort of a trial or somewhere where I acquired a sort of way of demonstrating instruments. Just because for me was the easier way to sell stuff. I mean,
hmm,
this is what it is, and it sounds like this, and I was showcasing stuff. So
gotcha.
after the teaching for me, I mean, teaching and performing is very much connected in a way. Because
Gotcha.
also I have to experiment and push my boundaries as much as I can live to experiment basically and to learn to teach
Hmm.
myself how to do something pops in my mind.
Gotcha. Well, and I think one of the key things about teaching is it is always a good opportunity to kind of make sure that you've got a really good grasp on something to be able to explain it to someone else.
So,
Because if you don't fully understand and they have a question, now all of a sudden you're kind of going, gee, just because I don't know, you know, and so
exactly.
it is definitely an opportunity, and sometimes even a student giving you a question might make you revise what you're thinking and go, if you're having difficulty understanding it this way, maybe I should approach it this other way, and it'll make it clear. So it's teaching is an important thing when it especially comes down to leaving future generations of musicians. And I think especially in our country, unfortunately, it is an area where a lot of funding has been cut from education and in the realm of the arts. And so there is so much more that can come from music education that goes just beyond creating professional musicians. Some people go on to be professional musicians, but it helps with your analytical skills. There was a recent study that even being involved in music may help people have less chances of Alzheimer's and dementia in older age
Sure.
because you're creating flow in your pathways in your brain to use areas that otherwise maybe you wouldn't so much. But I will get off my soapbox. Let's talk about the exciting news. You have your very first album just dropped, actually just a few days ago, Beyond.
Yes, it's been released on December the 9th, and yeah, it is my debut album. I mean, the first work I produce with under my name.
Hmm.
Incredible journey, I would say. They went beyond anything really, beyond any expectation, beyond schedule. I was supposed to release it much earlier on, but then along the way, I managed to have some great musicians on it, great collaborators. And yeah, it's an instrumental, 63 minutes long instrumental fusion progressive album.
Hmm.
Features 7 songs, where pretty much all my influences are kind of blended together. So from, again, you can find a bit of fusion, jazz, rock, heavy metal, Latin, big band. Um, I mainly slap all of it and fretless, so I like the two contrast.
Hmm.
And and yeah, I hope you enjoy it and you check it out, definitely.
Well,
So
absolutely, and what I have to say again, it is as a debut album, it is certainly an introduction into a variety of your musicality. So for people that are intent on fusion, there's some tasty bits there for you. For people that are more interested in some of the slap and pop techniques and things, there's some of that in there. There's a lot of things, and there is just some when we talk about upbeat and energetic, there is just some crazy fast bass work that I know working with somebody like Marco Miniman, who we had the opportunity to hear the Aristocrats. We chatted with them when they were in Portland. Uh, Crazy good drummer, and again, drums and bass always work together. And again, amazing other musicians. I'm not making less of the roundup. If you want to mention all the fine players you got on the on Beyond,
oh yeah,
who.
of course. Well, I mean, Marco actually was the first one to join the project, and then there are some synth solo by Jordan Rudess
Mm-hmm.
from Dream Theater, and the saxophone from Eric Marinthal from Chicory Electric Band. Then the piano, I have Jesus Molina. He's a South American guy who lives in Boston. He's another incredible musician.
Mm-hmm.
And Tomasz Bura is an incredible Polish piano player who's in London. I used, we gig together sometimes, and was happy to join in. And then the guitarist and composer and co-producer Robbie Meola is actually another big part of the journey, because we've been co-producing the album together.
Gotcha.
And without him, I couldn't have done what I've done, because he was pushing me and was creating parts on top as well, saying, I saw you doing something like this, and he programmed the bass line thing. Can you do that? And I say, what the hell? I don't know. Let's try. But then I was taking the challenge, so he pushed me and made it even more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds the way it sounds a lot because of his help and
Nice.
support, incredible patience. And we've been mixing the album together, and we were together at the Abbey Road Studios in London for the mastering session. And yeah, it is very intense. It is a very intense album.
Mm-hmm.
Very melodic, I would say. So it's not hard to listen or to catch up the main melodies or the movements, although underneath there is a lot of things going on. And
Yes.
Marco Miniman, as you said, yes, was incredible. He did everything pretty much spot on and very quick and effective. He said he enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And the big result I think I achieved is also that I gave and I got the essence of the musicians, their musical tastes, because I wanted to, like a painting,
Mm-hmm.
so I was putting elements together. So I gave them, I mean, parts were parts and the melodies were the melodies, but then they managed to fit in really well all together, coming from different styles. Because again, Eric Marinthal is the fusion guy, the
Sure.
80s fusion, while Jordan Rudess is the prog metal, and Marco is coming from this progressive, crazy rock world,
Hmm.
and Jesus is from a more jazz background, jazz fusion. Besides, he's an incredible multi-instrumentalist, and Tomas is from more classical and rock and jazz a lot. So it's a blend, which I believe. I'm really happy to listen back to it because actually I haven't listened to it for a long time. Just the mixing part, which has been taking a bit of time.
I got you. Well, and because I have been listening to it, the intricacies, the precision, the complexity of the music, yet I want to say the universal appeal, because one of my issues with fusion is that a lot of times when you have high level musicians, they play at a level that goes over the heads, I think, of a lot of the public. And you'll have things that are maybe disjointed, or and other musicians get it and they'll go, wow, that's amazing.
Phenomenal, yeah.
But the general public might go, oh, what's going on there? I'm not
Over the
feeling
top
it.
sometimes, yeah.
And I kind of, my grasp with this is that it has a universal appeal where people that are heavy into any of the genres that your musicians represent will go, yeah, I get that, I like that. That's what I'm grasping. And so I think that is a good direction. And when I talk about music, I try to certainly not be critical, because it is a labor of love. It's like talking about somebody's child. You don't want to tell them their child looks funny, because that's
No,
their child. It's
but
important.
no child looks funny. And
Yeah, but I don't enjoy every kind of music. I respect people for doing their different kinds of music, but this, I think, has a universal appeal that can reach out to everybody, and maybe somebody who wasn't as much into fusion, it will kind of suck them in and they'll go, okay, yeah, I can roll with that. Or people that have that essence that they like the classical, they go, okay, I see that. Or the Latin, that you're kind of going, yeah, I'm digging that because it's got that little something that I can kind of relate to. It's not going over my head, but it is extraordinarily intricate. And again, I like to think of music sometimes like fabric, where if you look at the lace and it's got all the detail and there's areas and it's doing a whole job, it's covering something, but it's got all of those intricate bits. So certainly it is something that is just super impressive as a premiere effort. It's a great collaboration. What I will ask, because I always want to make sure I don't forget, I hear different bass voices from you in this too. So I heard some fretless. I hear some again, the slapping and the popping. Tell us about your gear. How did you get your voice for this project?
it's been kind of tough process too, actually, because I didn't have much reference to look at
Mm-hmm.
because of the intricacy and the volume of notes, apart from the loudness, let's say. I have, for the main parts, for the fretted and slap parts, I use my Larus 5-string quasar.
Mm-hmm.
This is an Italian handmade custom bass, and extremely reliable and precise and focused. Um, I used my Fender P bass on the last track of the album, the title track Beyond, which is more like a 6/8 ballady type of idea. And
Mm-hmm.
but when I need to go faster, just because the music is fast, I need more focus. So I found the Larus really cuts through, and I hope you can enjoy it through the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked a bit on it, and now I've got some custom EMG pickups that Rob from EMG made, tailored for me. I don't really know what it is actually. Some people have been asking me. I think it's. I asked him some passive, and I think he made some split coil, single split coil with ceramic and steel magnet.
Mm.
And before, I used to have some humbuckers, but I think I much rather prefer these EMG's ones. And it gives clarity. And the good thing is that when my girlfriend, she's a painter, who actually she painted the cover of the album, so I had
Okay.
to bless her, Justina Kuzicek, incredible artist, and she when she listened to the album said, "There's Delarus, yeah, but was it amplified? Because it sounds like when you play in the room." I said, "Really? Actually, that's a great compliment because it sounds very natural."
Mm-hmm.
And the fretless parts with this, I have it here actually. This Oliver Lang um, fretless bass, and he gave me this instrument last year at the London Bass Guitar Show. He's got a white ebony fretboard, passive pickups, and it's got a lot of growl, but sounds very focused and smooth. By slightly shorter, is I think is 32 and 7/8 inches long. Uh, so sometimes I was struggling to get the intonation right because I'm used to 34 inch scale.
Sure.
And the other one I use in the track is the PJ bass or the jazz bass, Fender Classic. My second, or actually my first proper bass guitar I bought
Mm-hmm.
a year and a half after I started playing, and and I think everything was DI'd through an Avalon U5, and and sometimes I used, I think, on some other tracks, I used my GR bass head, which is very transparent and clear. So sometimes the Robbie, the engineer in that role, couldn't tell if it was the line or the amp because it's so transparent. So we
Nice.
kind of lined up everything, and then what else gear wise? I'm a bit of a gig with gear, just because I was working in a music shop, and I remember when I first started, for me all pedals were looking the same, apart from the Boss pedals, which were saying overdrive, distortion, or whatever.
Sure.
So I started digging into the gear, and I have to say that somehow helps. I mean, is becomes an extension of your sound. So you know what you want, and you just look out and try things out
Mm-hmm.
that do, or they sound the way you want. And so I'm trying to find something which is transparent. So like I love when the bass, because I play a lot at night, and so respecting neighbors, I just play unplugged or with headphones sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I like the sound of the instruments I have unplugged. The
Yeah.
problem I find most of the time is that when I plug it in to an amp, they don't sound the same because of the pickups perhaps, or the amp, or even the cables. I'm using for been using for almost 10 years. Evidence audio cables. Tony Farinella makes them the best sounding cable I ever found. Again, just because they are clean and transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, I mean, I don't think it's placebo, but I can tell if it's not my cable because it feels different on your fingers. Perhaps for you that you listen, so the final listener won't change much, but it's the feel. You know, when you play that you want that attack or that response under your fingers.
Sure.
Helps. So a little combination of this, and that
Mm-hmm.
to keep the chain of sound clean and reliable. Because you don't want to show up at a gig and something cuts off. The lead is not working, or the pedal
Got you.
goes for the buffer, or whatever. And then what else I have? I don't know, some
Sh-
pedals I have.
String wise, what are you playing on?
Oh, string wise, I'm a big fan and proud endorsee of Roto Sound strings, which is UK British
Mm-hmm.
manufacturer. I mean, they are the best string I ever found because they've got their own character. Let's say that I found the nicest tone I ever found.
Nice.
Even when they're a bit dead, when they're a bit worn off and a bit too much pulling, they still retain a good, nice tone. They don't get completely dead.
Nice.
And and yeah, I think they also do a lot of, they change a lot. If you have the same bass and you change the string, when they're new, pretty much you can get by with most of them.
Hmm.
But then again, it's the tension, because I like steel round wound strings on all my basses, and they have a good tension on my fingers.
Nice.
Used to dig a lot, uh, so I like to have it kind of tense, not too soft, let's say.
Got you. Well, finding your sound is a particular thing with so many bassists, and it's always interesting because you'll have people that are changing strings all the time because they only like the way they sound when they're new. On the other end of the spectrum, you have people that haven't changed their string in years. And they like the way that sounds. I'm always kidding them. I'm like, oh, so you just play reggae because you're looking for a dead kind of thumpy sound? But it's whatever it is going with the music you're playing and the sound that you're trying to get. And the same is true with pedals. When we talk about pedals, it sounds, from what I remember hearing from your album, I heard the bass a lot, and it's the characteristics of the instrument that I think, depending on the kind of music, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but with a lot of metal, if they're using distortion or if they're using, an octawah, you've added in elements of the electronics, and even for a lot of the purists, something as simple as like a tube amplifier versus the now integrated circuitry kind of things, and granted, a lot of amplifiers, they're trying to get that tube sound, and they'll say that we're emulating a tube amplifier, but we're not a tube amplifier. And so there are still a lot of people that go, I need to have my tubes because that's the sound I'm looking for. So it's,
Of course.
I invite people to listen specifically because, especially, I think the key word applies is the transparency of the sound of your bass is coming through. And also, I would compliment you, of course, this is as a bassist, that in the mixing, the bass rings clear and is evident and is up front, but it's not overwhelming. And many times engineers, I think, because they want to highlight the guitars or highlight the keys, they tend to put the basses so in the background that they're there, you kind of feel them, but you don't capture them as much. And I think in the mix that you've done, it's nice because it's up front, but it's not too much. It's not over the top. So it's present and visible and accountable and very enjoyable. And again, so many people are going to have to listen to this. So we should probably tell them, where's the best place to look? At alexlofoco.com would be the best place?
Yes, that's my website. There are some links, or is available on pretty much all online stores.
Okay.
iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, Deezer, Spotify if you want to stream it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it will be. It's only available for download at the moment. I wanted to do some vinyls, to be honest, because I never had a vinyl actually player in my house, so I never experienced it. And the mastering engineer was a bit cheeky, and he cut a bit of a tune on a vinyl and then played back, and it sounded just amazing. I mean, my bad, I just couldn't experience that before.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking perhaps to release a short number of vinyls.
They're making a comeback.
I believe so, but the sound and the way that they've got their own sound, of course.
Yes.
And I would say that perhaps for this very kind of music, could be beneficial because, again, long tracks, very complex, would be nice to experience it kind of old school. So
Gotcha.
Sitting down on the sofa with friends, a couple of drinks, and just listen to it, as opposed to, I mean, it sounds good on the iPhone too, of course, but it's just the experience of music which has changed over the time, because obviously technology allow us to do that. And I think the vinyl is coming back because, from a collector point of view, let's say you want a physical thing, but the reason why I would like to do it is for the sound, which is a bit, warmer, but punchy and very, very pleasant. Let's say quite an experience. I mean, perhaps because it's those compositions that require a lot of headroom. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be I will update the website or something, but hopefully they will be available soon.
Got you.
And another thing I wanted to add about the sound also, apart from the sound, that you get from, of course, the gear, I'd like to have a crystal clear sound because that's the way I feel it. But however, the distinctive sound derives from the choice of notes.
Hmm.
And doesn't matter what kind of cable or pedals or bass you use, is when you play your phrases or your way of approaching music, that also makes a lot of difference. That's
Oh,
what
absolutely.
Jacob Pastorius was saying, right? And it's not just the EQ. So I would suggest people to try everything out and find a good compromise of what they like.
Hmm.
But so, I mean, I use some distortion actually on some parts on the bass to enhance some more harmonics to
Sure.
get it through, um, like a fuzz and a handmade 60s replica of, well, actually, it's a brand new replica with all components from kind of a Jimi Hendrix.
Got you.
Jimi Hendrix fuzz by Faber Sound is a friend in Rome, and he hand builds these beautiful pedals, and he gives that little saturation which doesn't sound distorted maybe in the mix,
Hmm.
but gives a bit of growl, something a bit something like Geddy Lee from Rush.
Sure.
He's got a growling sound which is distorted. I kept it a bit less, just to give it that crispiness and punch. So yeah, I believe for the sound, it's important to I guess what do you want to say? So finding the right notes and licks, and then find out, experiment. Takes a lot of time and a bit of money also, because if you try several set of pickups, different instruments and everything, but definitely is quite rewarding and quite pleasant. So you're happy to go and gig, and you're happy. It comes with experience as well. So you know the instrument or the gear so well,
Sure.
you know how to react. So it's sort of a symbiotic sort of magic between you and the gear. So you become more accustomed to something, and knowing the limits of the instrument helps. So you know that note doesn't sound good, so you don't play that, the other one. And then you craft your licks even sometimes. So it would be good, if everybody would have a chance to try things out
Hmm.
and try to put down, play some of the album lines and see if you get the same sound or different.
Got you. Well, Ed, in the interest of, again, I know it's later where you are, but also, even though this is just released in the last few days, what's next? What do you have? Do you have your next most bassists are kind of constantly like sharks, perpetual motion. You're okay. What am I doing next?
At the moment, I'm kind of busy, sort of sharing and promoting the album, of course,
Okay.
because it's self-published, so I don't have any label behind it. And definitely, I'll be looking at playing those tracks live, but definitely will happen not in the immediate future, perhaps in summer. And at the moment, I'm finishing my method,
Okay.
my teaching method, which is for guitar and bass, which is a sort of what I'm trying to do is a bridge, basically bridging the beginner and the advanced level, because my sound a bit funny, but I mean, a beginner is already advanced. He's just not aware of it. He just doesn't know it.
Hmm.
Is to find the mechanics of the motion, because we have just a limited amount of combination. So 4 fingers, X amount of strings, and X amount of combination of notes per string with a picking hand, whatever technique you want to do. And so this way, it's something like there was that 80s film Karate Kid, wax on, wax off.
Yeah.
Some exercises which maybe don't make sense all of a sudden, but then once you learn the routine, I explained that combination, it's called C major 7. The other combination is E flat 7 sharp 9, because it's a matter of combinations. And I've developed this one after studying a lot, Jaco Pastorius, and because I found the way. I think I found one way that he might have learned the craft on the instrument.
Nice.
So I think he was probably was the first one and still unreached bassist for what he was doing and
Hmm.
clarity he had on the instrument. So I'm trying to do an iBook version of this book,
Okay.
uh, and that's another big baby because I've been working on this for the last 7 years.
Wow.
Um, just because I wanted to make it really small, not big book, many definitions. So I wanted to shrink everything as much as possible to give just one definition for everything. Was the major scale or chromatic scale, just to make it clear, like a statement, like a encyclopedia type of almost mathematic.
Nice.
Like any scale is a selection of notes from the chromatic scale. You just select few notes from the bunch of chromatic of the 12 notes, and any combination is major scale and all the modes, or minor harmonic or melodic or symmetric scales, and I think that's it. I can't think of anything else. There are just 12 notes available in the Western system.
Hmm.
So 12 notes is 3 times 4 fingers.
Yeah.
And then you can place that. So it's the way you arrange them, let's say, on the instrument. Also because the bass and the guitar, they're tuned in fourth.
Hmm.
The guitar, of course, they are symmetrical. And I was struggling a lot with all these things I'm trying to explain now. So again, we go back to what we were talking about earlier. Try to externalize some concept, as you mentioned, to make sure that you really grasped the concept you're trying to convey.
Hmm.
So hopefully will be done by the NAMM show. So I will show you some previews then.
Oh, we'll be looking for. It gives us something to look forward to. See much sooner than I anticipated with a recent release. That's because the NAMM show is just about a month and a half away now when you look at it. So,
Well, yeah,
uh,
I have done some. I've done some hard copy. I've got a poster which is
okay,
going to be available when the book. I mean, the poster is self-sufficient to learn any type of scale, really.
nice.
But I believe it needs just to make sure that people don't get confused. A little booklet, let's say, and then all the exercises and things for the bass and the guitar as well.
Of course, people, you're hearing about all this on Bass Musician Magazine. So we've teased you, and when Alex has
Well, check it out.
he will be sending more, and you'll be finding out more. And of course, I'm sure the best place going back to follow alexlofoco.com. They can keep track, if they're of interest. They follow both the Beyond the album, the upcoming method, and just all the stuff that you're doing. They can stay on top of this and stay current. Alex, I don't want to keep. I know it's so much later where you are. Again, thank you so much for taking time to share with us. People, make sure you check out Beyond. You can find it on alexlofoco.com or all of the other places that Alex has mentioned. Stay tuned. More great things are coming. We are going to be at the NAMM show, so most likely we'll find out more there because things are just moving and shaking as we speak. So people, you've seen it here. Alex Lofoco coming to you via Skype directly from London. Bass Musician Magazine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.